As I I'd just like to thank kind of ovarian cancer for really kind of allowing me to kind of have a chat with you this afternoon about benefits, really, finances, and what you kind of may be entitled to following a diagnosis of ovarian cancer. There may very well be people here who are kind of newly diagnosed, pre-treatment, kind of going through treatment and post-treatment as well. So I'm hoping throughout the session you kind of pick something up which will benefit you kind of as we go along. So first of all, let's start. And as I say, my name's Mike. I'm a benefit advisor based at Maggie's in Swansea, so it's in South Wales. But I'd like to kind of just point towards the kind of quote at the bottom, and this is a quote from an actual kind of centre visitor, which says, "It's not actually kind of the cancer that keeps me awake at night. It's worrying about kind of how we'll pay the bills." That's quite a kind of powerful quote, because to have a diagnosis of cancer can be kind of a devastating thing, but to think that that's not kind of the main kind of worry for some people. It's actually kind of how they're going to kind of afford to kind of pay the bills at the end of the day. Yeah, it's quite, and I suppose it's quite as well kind of after kind of being diagnosed, I'm assuming that kind of quite high on the kind of priority list does come the point where, I mean, am I going to have to finish work? Am I going to have to give up work for a period of time? So it does have kind of quite an impact financially and benefit-wise on people's ability to kind of pay the bills, basically. So just a little bit about kind of Maggie's, kind of who we are. We're a UK kind of wide charity, UK-wide organisation. It's just kind of providing free, practical, emotional, kind of social support to anybody kind of affected by cancer. There's no time limit in you kind of access the Maggie centres. You can be pre-treatment, you can be going through treatment, you can be post-treatment for a number of years. And we support, as I say, kind of family, friends, carers, and we've got a kind of a growing network of centres across the UK. Hopefully you can kind of see that, but kind of highlighted are the centres that we've got. We're hoping within the next kind of 25 years to have really kind of a Maggie centre at every kind of major city within the UK. I don't know if kind of, obviously COVID's not a great thing, but from kind of COVID, we have gone very kind of virtual. So even if you're not living kind of next to or near a Maggie centre, you can always phone and you can always kind of tap into the services kind of virtually. As I say, as well as the benefit side of things, there's relaxation, there's art, there's gardening, so there's lots of kind of support groups kind of going on throughout kind of Maggie centres, very kind of face-to-face and virtual as well. So if it is something you'd ever kind of like to kind of get involved in, let's say kind of Google Maggie's and try and find a centre near you. I suppose the purpose of today is really looking at the kind of financial impact of a cancer diagnosis. As I said, kind of following your initial kind of diagnosis, I suppose, is quite high up on the list there of worries in a way of kind of how you're going to manage to pay bills, to keep kind of going. But having a cancer diagnosis, as I said, it can cause a significant financial impact. First of all, obviously, there's the reduced income. You may have to give up work for a period of time. You may have to stop work altogether. So there's that kind of reduced income all of a sudden. Increased costs as well, so it's travelling to appointments, higher household bills. I'm based at Singleton Hospital in Swansea in South Wales, and it's one of 2 hospitals that offers radiotherapy. So anybody coming from kind of further west, you're looking at kind of a significant kind of journey in for your radiotherapy treatment. If someone's coming from Aberystwyth, which is kind of far west Wales, into Swansea for radiotherapy, 5 weeks, 6 weeks of radiotherapy treatment every day, you're looking at a 150-mile round trip. So if you think of the actual kind of distance, traveling yourself, people maybe kind of taking time off work as well to kind of drive you in and to appointments, all of a sudden that kind of, the increased costs, they do kind of go up. And again, kind of higher household bills. So chemotherapy treatment, for example, radiotherapy treatment, even kind of surgery, it does mean that you're at home for a lot longer, for longer periods of time. Side effects of chemotherapy, you can feel very cold. All of a sudden the heating's on more, you're at home more, the electricity's on more. And I mean, just looking in the news kind of this week in relation to kind of increased kind of gas prices, things going up. So yeah, I mean, household bills all of a sudden can significantly increase just as a result of having a cancer diagnosis. Macmillan have kind of done some research, and they've gone into the fact, and they said a person on average £570 worse off a month. Now, I get paid at the end of the month, and to find £570 less in my pay packet, you know, I'd struggle, most people would. But to have that reduced income on top of then kind of dealing with things like a cancer diagnosis, the increased travel costs, heating bills, all of a sudden, you can see why 4 in 5 people feel that kind of financial impact of a cancer diagnosis. But only a quarter of people apparently with a cancer diagnosis discuss their financial situation with the health professional or social care professional. Why is that? Are people embarrassed, maybe don't want to kind of talk about their finances when whether in a clinic with a specialist nurse or an oncologist? I suppose COVID's had an impact on that as well, in relation to kind of lack of face-to-face appointments, just telephone appointments. So all of a sudden, you know, people aren't kind of bringing and raising the issues with medical professionals who could then kind of, I suppose, kind of refer on to benefit advisors for a little bit of kind of specialist advice. So people kind of, in a way, kind of, they don't want to kind of mention their finances. And if they did, I suppose, earlier on, then, I mean, the support to be out there kind of earlier for them, and we were able to kind of support more people. And again, finances and the cost of cancer, it's an increasing issue for people across the UK. No matter where you live in, it's just an increasing issue. I've put this slide up there, a statutory sick pay. You know, there's maybe some people off work at the moment, just kind of gone off sick, maybe kind of in the middle of kind of a sickness period, just to kind of make you aware of statutory sick pay. It's something that if you are earning more than £120 a week or more, you're going to be entitled to. It's £96.35 a week, so it's not a massive amount of money. So somebody who could be on kind of quite a good weekly wage, whose employer may just kind of pay them statutory sick pay. That's quite a drop there. But as I say, it's just to make you aware that it can be claimed. It lasts for 28 weeks, so it's just over 6 months. And you've got to really kind of exhaust that before you can look at maybe some other kind of benefits you're going to be off long term. But as I say, 4 days or more sick in a row, you must be earning £120 or more a week. And the past 8 weeks is in there because I've had a lot of instances where people on 0 hour contracts or agency workers, for example, have been told that they can't get statutory sick pay because they're not entitled to it. But as long as they're working, and as long as you're working for 8 weeks, or the past 8 weeks for this person, and you're earning on average more than £120 a week, then you do become entitled to statutory sick pay. So if there is anybody kind of at the moment in that position whereby they're not getting statutory sick pay, it may be worth getting some specialist advice, or certainly kind of contacting kind of the agency or their employer just to make them aware that they may be eligible. Occupational company sick pay is normally kind of paid on top of statutory sick pay. So what you should get in your contract is your sickness kind of, in a way, entitlement. A lot of people, for example, if you work for the local authority, the health board, they may get kind of 6 months full pay, 6 months half pay. So in a way, for the first 6 months, nothing really kind of changes as far as kind of income goes. But just to let you know, inclusive in that kind of full pay from day 4 of your period of sickness would be your statutory sick pay entitlement. So as I say, you're already kind of, you've started that kind of 28-week process from going off sick straight away. It may be something, as I say, you may be eligible for. If you're not, it may be worth kind of looking into. Any kind of questions so far? I feel I'm babbling on a little bit, but I hope it's all kind of coming across okay. But if there are any questions, I say more than happy to take a break and answer anything.
Michael, I've got a question. I'm currently on long-term sick.
Yeah.
But I've got the 6 months full pay, luckily.
Okay.
So when does this? So my employer led me to believe that my statutory sick pay wouldn't come in until next year.
Right.
Does that make sense?
No, because your statutory sick pay should be inclusive in your pay already.
Right. So I need to increase that.
So what normally happens is you'll see a pay slip really kind of as normal, your pay comes in as normal, but how it should be kind of broken down will be kind of occupational and company sick pay and statutory sick pay.
Right, okay.
Sooner you kind of exhaust your statutory sick pay and you're going to be off long term, then you can claim, even though you may be having half pay, for example, for maybe kind of a further 6 months. As soon as the statutory sick pay has been exhausted, and work would let you know when it's due to finish, then you could claim then some sickness benefit on top of your half pay. There's a little slide on that a little bit further on called employment and support allowance, but it is something that you should be able to claim once you've exhausted your statutory sick pay.
Okay, that's lovely. Thank you very much.
Okay, no problem. So if we move on, in a way, kind of benefits. So they're administered by the Department for Work and Pensions. And what are benefits? Basically, they are payments, say, from the government to certain people on low incomes, or to meet specific needs such as being unwell, sick, disabled, or being a carer as well, because some people may have to finish work or take time off work to look after somebody. So there's that kind of benefit in carers allowance as well. There are two real kind of types of benefits. We're looking at means tested benefits and non-means tested benefits, but we'll have a look at the means tested kind of thing first of all. As I say, your entitlement depends on your income, savings and capital. So any kind of income that you have coming in is taken into account. If you're married, if you have a partner, their income is taken into account as well. Any joint savings, any things like kind of ISAs, bonds, capital in the form of property, it's all taken into account as income when you look at kind of means tested benefits. The amount you can get can be different. I like to think as means tested benefits kind of a building block type of thing, whereby you kind of get standard allowances, and then depending on your circumstances, you may be too unwell to work, you may have dependent children, you may have housing costs in the form of rent. These kind of blocks then are kind of built on top of your standard allowance, which gives you kind of full kind of means tested benefit entitlement, if you like. And then any income you've got is obviously taken off that, which leaves you at the end of it then with your amount of kind of means tested benefit. The main one at the moment, let's say, is universal credit. We have probably all heard about it, especially with kind of COVID on the news at the moment, and it's just been reduced now. So when COVID kicked in, they gave everybody, whether it be a single person, whether it be a couple, they gave people kind of an extra £80 a month, which has started to end now, and people are having notifications that the universal credit is going to be dropping by £80 a month, which is a huge amount. It does support people of working age. If a person is on a low income or out of work, a lot of people think they can't claim universal credit because they think it's a kind of benefit for people who work. That's not the case. They do encourage people, obviously, to work because income and all the income is kind of taken into account, if you like. Some of it is disregarded. But there is a sickness element of universal credit as well. So therefore, if you haven't paid kind of national insurance contributions, for example, and can't claim sickness benefit based on them, you can look at universal credit. But again, as it's means tested, they do take into account, as I say, partner's income, any savings you've got. Also capital, so anything 16,000 or more, then you're not eligible for universal credit. Anything kind of between 6 and 16 will affect the amount you get. So basically, if you've got less than £6,000 in savings, they don't want to know, it's disregarded. Anything 16,000 or more, you don't get universal credit, and basically then anything kind of in between as far as savings goes, it will reduce the amount of income or the amount of universal credit you get. Like back to the kind of building block side of things, it is kind of made up of, as I say, you get this standard allowance, and then on top of it, any kind of extra amounts that apply. So for example, you might have dependent children. So if you've got 2 dependent children, all of a sudden you get your standard allowance plus 2 kind of child elements. If you're too unwell to work, due to a cancer diagnosis, with the fact you may be off long term, then there's a sickness kind of element which is added on top of that. So all those kind of building blocks gives you your kind of final, universal credit amount, and then any income that you've got coming in, so whether it be statutory sick pay, for example, is kind of deducted off that then. And again, if you've got rent to pay, there's a housing kind of cost element added on as well. You can't claim housing benefit anymore. It is literally a case of the housing element of universal credit. You can claim housing benefit in certain circumstances, but for people of working age, new claims, it's all kind of geared around the kind of universal credit. Now, what they're trying to do is get rid of 6 kind of benefits. So you've got the income-related job seekers allowance, employment support allowance, income support, housing benefit, and they're just trying to kind of amalgamate everything into one benefit. They say it's supposed to make it easier. I don't think it does, but there we are. There's also kind of a weight as well with universal credit, which I think is unfair, especially for people who are on low incomes or have no income coming in at all. You've got a 5-week wait. So from when you apply, there's actually kind of a 5-week waiting for your first payment, which can have a huge impact on people's kind of finances, their ability to pay the bills, even kind of put food on the table. You can't get an advance on universal credit, so whatever your kind of maximum amount is, you can get an advance for those first 5 weeks. But just to make you aware that any advance you get is then kind of deducted from your next year's payment. So they kind of work it out basically, and then they deduct this from every payment for the next 12 months. So sometimes taking an advance, it does kind of have a knock-on effect for the next year basically. And alongside universal credit, help with the council tax as well. So it's provided through local authorities, so each local authority is different. Each local authority have their own kind of rules, but basically it's assisting people on a low income with their council tax bill. And again, capital savings, £16,000 or over, you're not eligible. And again, first 6,000 disregarded. Anything in between, obviously that would affect the amount that you receive. So we've looked at means tested benefits, so kind of working age in a way. There are also kind of means tested benefits for people who are of pension age. So the big one is pension credit. So it's a weekly kind of benefit to boost your income. And again, that's based on how much money you've got coming in. Basically, what the government say is you should be having, as a single person, for example, £177.10. That's your amount. That's what you should be able to live off, basically. So if you have a state pension and it's less than that, then what they will do is they will top it up with pension credit. If you're a couple, as I say, £270.30 a week is your applicable amount. And again, with pensions, if they're less than that, they'll top it up to 270. There are, again, very kind of much like the building blocks we spoke with universal credit, additional amounts paid. So you could be severely disabled. So anybody having personal independence payment or attendance allowance, for example, they could get the severe disability amount added on to the basic amount of pension credit. And again, someone who's a carer, there's a carer element, which again can be added on. And it just kind of bumps up then your applicable amount of pension credit. Savings differ slightly with pension credit, as in they allow you to have a little bit more. So capital, £10,000, so 6 with anything kind of under state pension age is 10,000. So 10,000 or less is disregarded. Anything you've got kind of over 10,000, then basically every £500 that you've got is £1 worth of income. So what you do is you take your actual income, you take any savings that you've got over £10,000, work it out from there. So it's, as I say, for every 500, it's £1. And then, as I say, that gives you your kind of total income. If you're under the threshold, it gets topped up with the guaranteed element of pension credit. This is a benefit which can have a knock-on effect and a passport to other things as well. So if you were to get pension credit, then you get a full council tax reduction. So you don't pay council tax anymore. If you're renting, you get housing benefit. So the housing benefit, your rent is paid in full, or you get kind of the majority of it paid. You may have to kind of contribute a little bit towards it yourself. Things like dental treatment, optical treatment, travel fares back and forth to hospital. And that's kind of one of the questions which does come up a lot, actually, is kind of getting back and forth to hospital for treatment. If you're on a means tested benefit, so you're going to kind of universal credit, pension credit, the guaranteed element of that, then you could still be on old kind of benefits, income support, for example, income related employment and support allowance, and you haven't been kind of asked to kind of apply for universal credit yet, then as long as you've got your award letters which confirm that you're on the benefit, you can claim things like travel fares back and forth to hospital, you can claim them back. So when you go into hospital for treatment or a clinic appointment, as long as you've got this kind of award letter with you, ask them in your hospital, where can I go to claim back my travel fares? Go there, they kind of put in a route finder, they'll take your postcode to the hospital, and then obviously they'll work up the mileage and they're going to pay you back from there. I think it's about 15 pence a mile, but as I say, it does, if you come in, as I say, 150 miles a day for radiotherapy for 6 weeks, then the costs do mount up. So if you're on a means tested benefit, please make sure you find your award letter, take it into the hospital, and make sure you claim your travel fares back, because it's something you're entitled to. Following off on pension credit, we mentioned kind of housing benefit. You can't claim housing benefit if you're below pension age, unless you're in kind of temporary accommodation. But as I say, the housing benefit side of things, you can claim for help with the rent if you're claiming pension credit as well. It's provided through the local council. As I say, it assists people on low incomes. You can only make a new claim if you reach state pension age. It says say there, including the partner. The government, they've been a little bit kind of sneaky here by, well, within the last 2 years, they've said that both you and your partner now have to be over state pension age in order to qualify for pension credit. It used to be a case of as long as one of you was over pension age, then you could claim pension credit. But pension credit is a lot more, it's a lot better for you as opposed to kind of employment and support and also universal credit. You get more money, so they kind of move the goalposts a bit. As I said, if you're a mixed age couple, you can't claim it anymore. Basically, you've both got to be over state pension age. So again, capital over £16,000, you're not eligible for any housing benefit. Capital between 6 and 16, as I say, can affect the actual kind of amount that you get. And this is kind of non-means tested benefits. So income and savings are not taken into consideration for non-means tested benefits, but they do have their own rules which kind of must be met. So a non-means tested benefit is basically, it's for you. It doesn't include your partner, wife, husband, doesn't include any savings that you've got, doesn't include any savings that they may have. It's just basically you meet the conditions for them yourself, so therefore you should be able to kind of claim them in your own right. So the first kind of example of a non-means tested benefit would be employment and support allowance. And the reason I did kind of mention statutory sick pay at the start is because this is just kind of, this is relevant in a way to making a claim for a new style employment and support allowance. It's called new style employment and support allowance. It's exactly the same as old style employment and support allowance. It's just when universal credit came in, they thought, oh, we need to change the name of employment and support allowance as well, so we'll just call it new style. But it's exactly the same as old style employment and support allowance. So you have to be under state pension age, first of all. If you're on new style ESA and then you reach state pension age, ESA stops, and then you have to apply for your state pension, and then your state pension kicks in. It replaces your earnings basically when you're unable to work because of an illness or disability. So you have a diagnosis of cancer, you're off for a number of months, kind of due to treatment, due to surgery, radiotherapy, and the kind of recovery of that as well. So basically, if you're unable to work for a long time, then you may very well get some new style employment and support allowance. It does go on your national insurance contributions. So if you're making a claim in 2021, basically you must have paid enough national insurance contributions in the tax years 18, 19, 19, 20. So those are the two kind of years they looked at. They don't take into account 21 at the moment because we're still in 2021. So as long as you've paid enough national insurance contributions for those 2 years, then there's nothing really to say that you can't get new style employment and support allowance. There's a question here which has come through about kind of being self-employed. What support is available for kind of self-employed people who cannot claim statutory sick pay? So as a self-employed person, you don't work for anybody, so you can't get statutory sick pay basically. But you can then claim new style employment and support allowance instead to replace it. So whereas before you'd have to exhaust your statutory sick pay for 28 weeks and then claim ESA, because you're self-employed, you can claim it straight away because you haven't got the entitlement to statutory sick pay. So if you are self-employed and you're thinking, oh, can I claim anything? Check, it's your class 2 national insurance contributions. So as an employee working for somebody, it's class 1. But then as somebody who's self-employed, as long as your class 2 national insurance contributions over that period are paid up to date, then there's nothing to say that you can't claim new style employment and support allowance for yourself. You may also then be able to claim universal credit on top of it because of that kind of building block element we spoke about earlier. You've got your income of ESA, but if your universal credit entitlement is then more, you can then have it topped up with universal credit. I hope that makes a little bit of sense. There's a question which did come in about somebody who was kind of retired early due to ill health. And this is quite kind of relevant here, really. How do I get kind of national insurance contributions? So if I manage to reach 67, the state pension isn't reduced. Now then, if you have finished early or do have to retire on ill health, then there's a good chance if you're below state pension age, you may not have kind of paid enough national insurance kind of contributions in a way to get a full state pension when you do retire. And they are kind of moving the goalpost, obviously from 60 years ago, and it was going up to kind of 66, 67. So retiring early due to ill health may have meant that you had a lump sum or you've had some sort of kind of occupational kind of pension, which is going to have been paid out. That the lump sum itself doesn't affect any sickness benefit, but any occupational pension that you may have or now be in receipt of, depending on how much it is, could reduce the amount of ESA that you get. That's the only thing really that will reduce new style kind of employment and support allowance, is that kind of private pension. It'll be worth kind of noting as well, obviously, how many years national insurance contributions that you've already kind of put in. Because if you've already kind of paid 35 years, that's the maximum. So really you can't kind of pay anymore as far as your state pension goes. So as long as you've got more than 10, so 10 will give you your kind of basic state pension in a way, up to 35. Once you reach 35 years of national insurance contributions, hopefully you should meet your full entitlement to a state pension. You can get a pension forecast. So therefore, if one of the pension service say, look, this is the amount of years I've worked, can you give me a pension forecast on my state pension when I'm due to retire? If it's short, then really you have a couple of options. The first option, can I claim universal credit? Can I claim employment and support allowance? Can I claim carers allowance? Because these kind of benefits, if you're in receipt of them, for every week that you're on one of those benefits, they credit you with a national insurance contribution towards your state pension. So if you're too unwell to work and you have to claim sickness benefit, once you're in receipt of this benefit, it is contributing towards your state pension kind of when you do retire. If there is a gap, then you can look at paying class 3 voluntary contributions, but it depends, obviously, when you get that pension forecast, how many kind of weeks you have to pay to bring it up to date, because it's quite expensive. You're looking at £15.40 a week. So for every week that you're short, it's £15.40 that you have to pay to bring it up to date. If you think you've made an error, get advice from a pension expert first, because if you pay this money and you think you made an error, you can't get it back. There's no can't them say, oh, I think I made a mistake. Once you've paid it, you've paid it, basically. So get advice. I'd certainly get advice from a pension expert or an independent kind of financial advisor who specialises in pensions. But as I say, the class 3 is there as an option if you need to kind of bring things up to date. But if not, look at claiming, as I say, employment and support allowance or universal credit, because that will give you your national insurance credit for every week that you're off sick, basically. Especially kind of relevant for anybody who's maybe kind of long-term sick, not able to kind of return to work because of ill health.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. It's on the ESA permitted work, and at the moment I'm off work with a hope to returning over the next couple of weeks.
Okay.
My ESA started the 4th of December last year, and I've been told it'll expire kind of start of December this year, sorry, for that 12-month period.
Right.
I spoke to our local Maggie Centre a couple of weeks ago, and she was just saying that in some cases that you can apply for to have a permitted work, because I'm going from what was full-time hours to a reduced 15 hours, but I will be gradually breaking in, doing like fortnight at 6 hours, a fortnight at 8 hours, and building it up over 2 or 3 months. So would I be able to apply for the permitted part of ESA?
Yes, yeah, you should be. Of interest, you mentioned you've been on ESA for December, so it's due to kind of finish in December of this year?
Yes.
Right. Are you in the support group by any chance?
Yes.
Right, okay. I mean, if you're in the support group, there is no kind of end date.
Okay.
For employment and support allowance.
Right.
If you're in the work-related activity group, anybody who has a cancer diagnosis who is basically waiting for undergoing or recovering from treatment, so that can be radiation treatment, immunotherapy, chemotherapy, and the recovery period, there's no actual kind of time scale on the recovery period, because that can be years. As long as you're placed into the support group, then basically there's no 365-day end date to your ESA. Okay.
I think the original letter, when I applied for it, do you automatically go in on one level, I think, which was a £74, and then after a period of 13 weeks, I think it got enhanced to the support group level. Is that correct? Right.
And you've probably had a letter when you were initially put into the assessment phase.
Yes, so I don't think...
You get 74.35 a week now, but we can only pay you this for 365 days.
Yes.
We send you that letter out. In a way, they jump the gun a little bit. They should really kind of send you a letter out once you place into the support group.
Yes.
Because with you being in the support group, there is no end date to it.
Okay, but do I still need to let them know if I'm returning to work?
Yes, you do.
Okay.
Yeah. If you don't let them know that you're returning to work, basically, employment and support allowance is a benefit for people who are too unwell to work.
Yeah.
So therefore, you have to, in a way, let them know that you're going back to work. But you mentioned the permitted work.
Yes.
So that is an option. So for anybody in the support group, you are kind of eligible to do, in a way, it's kind of taking tentative steps to get back into work.
Okay.
So kind of jumping back in, signing off from your ESA, so you've got nothing, because there may be a case of, do you know what, I can't really kind of do this at the moment, so I really need to go back onto employment and support allowance. So as long as you let them know permitted work, what it is, how many hours you're going to be doing, then they should be fine with that, to allow you to work a little bit and well kind of keep your employment and support allowance.
Okay, and is that just a phone call or something I do online, Michael?
It would be a phone call.
Okay.
So employment and support allowance, any kind of letter that you've had should have a phone number in the top right-hand corner. Just give them a call. Just let them know, look, I'm thinking of starting work. I don't know kind of how I'm going to be, basically. So just kind of have your employee details with you. This is what I'm looking to do. And there should be no problem with them letting you go back to work for a period of time. It's not kind of indefinite.
Yes, yeah.
But you may kind of say, okay, we'll allow you to do this work for X amount of weeks just to kind of get you back into it. And then we'll kind of review things, and then your employment and support allowance will stop.
Which is completely understandable. But like you say, I've been off for 16 months now. So I don't know if it's going to work. The employer doesn't know if it's going to work, but we're just going to give it a real kind of slow and steady trial period, really. So
And the thing as well with an employer, they should be making things like reasonable adjustments for you to go back
Yes.
to work. So when there's kind of longer breaks, shorter kind of days, you know,
Yes.
they should be kind of putting things like that in place for you. And it should be kind of agreed really between both parties before you do kind of actually kind of go back into the workplace.
Yeah, I've had a couple of good discussions with occupational health and done like a risk assessment at working at home as well. So
that's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Oh, thank you. I didn't want to interrupt, but that was my question, and we were just at that point, weren't we? So I thought, right.
Feel free, as I say, any kind of questions, or just feel free to put your hand up. Yeah, no problem.
Thank you.
Or just jump in, you know.
We had one a bit earlier asking if the claim to travel is only related to pension credit.
No. Claim, sorry, I should have explained myself a bit better. Traveling, to claim back your travel fares, basically, I've got a little bit of a slide a little bit further up on kind of things like kind of low income and that sort of thing, and you can get kind of exemption certificates. But theoretically, if you were on a means tested benefit, so pension credit, the guaranteed element of that, universal credit, working tax credit if you haven't kind of gone over onto universal credit yet, employment and support allowance, the old income rated, income support, so any kind of means tested benefit, as long as you've got your award letter to confirm that you're in receipt of it, then you should have no problem claiming travel fares back to hospital. You will need confirmation of an appointment, and as well, if you've got 3 months worth of appointments which you've attended, and all of a sudden it's only now that you're realising you can claim your travel fares back, if you can get something to confirm those kind of past appointments, so whether it be a chemotherapy unit, which you can kind of have your card with all your kind of appointment dates on it for your treatment, or radiotherapy, you should be able to kind of get reimbursed for those 3 months as well.
Great, thank you. And there was just another one quickly about how to apply for the benefits. Is that via online or on the phone? What's the best way?
Universal credit is online. They do have a helpline, which if you basically kind of Google universal credit, it should all come up there with the information. But basically, the application process for universal credit, it's not very straightforward, but it's all online. So if you're a single claimant, it's basically kind of typing in universal credit into Google, and it should take you through to the DirectGov website, which is kind of, you apply through there basically. If you're a couple, even if one of you is, so if you're claiming it because of ill health and maybe kind of unable to do a cancer diagnosis, then you'd be claiming it for yourself. But if you are part of a couple, your other half has to make a claim as well. So it's a joint claim basically. So that's where then all their kind of income and that sort of thing is kind of taken into consideration as well. So one of you would make the claim as the lead claimant in a way, because you'd be the one who's unwell, and then the other person would make the claim, and then the second person is given a code. It's called a linking code basically, and when they make their claim, they put the code in, and then basically the claims are linked together as a joint claim. So even though they're a joint claim, one person has access to their universal credit journal and the other person has access to their universal credit journal, but the actual kind of claims themselves are linked as a joint claim. Employment and support allowance, again, that's online now due to COVID. It used to be an application form, but now they've made it a little bit easier by doing an online application basically. But in both cases, for both benefits, there is a helpline. So if you are struggling, not everybody is great with IT, because with things like kind of universal credit and employment and support allowance, you have to verify who you are. So there's the ID side of things, passport, driver's license, proof of address. So you've got to kind of upload all this kind of information as well. So not everybody is kind of IT savvy in a way, and they may kind of struggle with it. So there is kind of a helpline which you can phone up, and then they can kind of guide you through the application process over the phone, but they would prefer it to be online. But PIP, again, personal independence payment, most people have kind of heard of this. It's a benefit for people who are unable to work. Again, it's non-means tested. but it's classed as a disability benefit. So basically, if you are kind of too unwell to work, but as a result of your kind of diagnosis and your treatment, you have kind of significant kind of health problems, then personal independence payment may be the kind of benefit to claim. There's kind of extra costs if you have long-term kind of health or disability. The amount you get, it's points scored as well, so the amount you get depends on your condition and how it affects you. You could have difficulties with both kind of your daily living needs, so they look at things like your ability to prepare food, go to the toilet, wash and bathe yourself, getting out of the bath, dress and undress yourself, and kind of get around as well. So with any kind of diagnosis, I mean, you could have mobility problems as well, which means personal independence payment may kind of be an option. You must have a difficulty for 3 months. So it kind of rules out anything in a way kind of short term. And then they say that for at least 9 months moving forward, you should still have the same problem. So they assess you over 12 months, 3 months back, 9 months forward. But if you're terminally ill and you don't have to kind of go through that kind of 3 month, 9 month process, you should be awarded it straight away, basically, under the special rules. So that's kind of personal independence payment. Attendance allowance is very similar to PIP, but it's for people who are over state pension age. If you look at this though, it doesn't cover mobility needs. So if you were approaching a state pension age and you were struggling with your mobility, it may be worth looking at a claim for PIP before you reach the age of your state pension, because PIP has the mobility element, which gives you some extra money and can give you a mobility vehicle as well, whereas the attendance allowance doesn't. So when you're approaching state pension age, it may be worth looking at PIP before kind of attendance allowance. But this is kind of help with personal care. It's again very similar to PIP in the fact that you need help or difficulty getting washed, dressed, supervision to make you stay safe, go to the toilet, get around the house, for example. And again, kind of attendance allowance may kind of be kind of an option for you. With this one, though, there's a little bit of a different criteria, as in you must have needed help for 6 months before you can claim, not the 3. And again, unless you're terminally ill, then you get kind of paid straight away. You don't have to meet that kind of criteria. Again, PIP, attendance allowance, if you wanted to kind of discuss that or look into it in a bit more detail, kind of any kind of benefit advice service will be able to kind of advise you, whether it be Maggie's, whether it be Macmillan, Citizens Advice Bureau, they're all kind of pretty good on kind of advising you, even kind of before you wanted to make the claim, just kind of to look at your entitlement. And any kind of application for this is over the phone. So if you Google PIP attendance allowance, you need to phone the DWP to kind of start the application process. So grants, this has been kind of a bit of a topic with the questions as well, and kind of relation to grants. Macmillan do very kind of cancer specific grants, so they're one-off payments, £350 to help with the extra kind of living costs. So increased energy bills, clothing, furniture, travel to hospital again. So if you're not on a means tested benefit, but maybe kind of a low income, they can kind of help with travel costs back up to the hospital as well. If you look at the savings again, so you can have £6,000 or £8,000 as a couple in savings. So anything more than that, obviously, you wouldn't be eligible. And again, kind of weekly income after rent and mortgage council tax. They take into account income, but then deduct kind of the rent, mortgage, council tax. You're looking at kind of £323 or £442 for a couple. So as long as your kind of income is there or thereabouts, as far as that's concerned. Macmillan grants it through your specialist nurse, really, or any kind of benefit advisor. They need to kind of fill in the medical report of the form, which just confirms you have a diagnosis and this is kind of the treatment that you've had or are going through at the moment. And then it would be kind of a benefit advisor that makes those kind of applications. You can't really kind of phone up and make them yourself. It has to be done kind of on your behalf. I just kind of like to make you aware as well of things that kind of turn to us. They've got a kind of website, and then I think there are about kind of over 3,000 kind of grants on there, which you may kind of be eligible for, and it may be worth kind of looking into. there are grants to help people who are in the construction industry, you know, the performing arts, retail, whatever. I mean, your kind of background may be, there may kind of be a grant there to kind of help you. Turn to us as well, have a fund where they can support people who have had a life-changing kind of diagnosis in a way, kind of within the last kind of 12 months. So again, everything's kind of means tested, but if you go onto the Turn to Us website, then there's a list of grants there which you may kind of be eligible for, worth looking into if you've got kind of travel fares or kind of extra costs as a result of your diagnosis. Blue badges, quickly as I say, if you're struggling to kind of get around, it just kind of helps you park in a way closer to your destination. The badge is for the person, not the car. So therefore, I mean, if the badge is done, whoever, I mean, the person can be in any vehicle, so it goes with them. There are kind of criteria in a way. There's the people who automatically qualify. So again, PIP, the higher rate for the mobility, or 8 points or more in moving around, and DLA at the higher rate. That's an automatic badge, I mean, qualification, very kind of straightforward. But there are the discretionary and temporary qualifications as well. So if somebody has terminal illness with poor mobility, completely unable to walk, or difficulty walking because of surgery, diagnosis, treatment, or whatever, support and medical evidence will need to be kind of provided by a specialist nurse to explain how your diagnosis has an effect on your ability to get around. But again, there's the discretionary and there's a temporary one as well. So if you're having medical treatment for cancer, for example, which may impact on your mobility, again, with supporting evidence, you could get a blue badge that way. And every local authority is different, and every kind of application would be online via your local authority kind of website. Hospital parking can be, I know in Wales now it's kind of free for most hospitals, but it can be kind of, I mean, extortionate kind of costs for things like hospital parking. It's worth asking chemotherapy units if you're there all day, or radiotherapy for a lot of treatment, if there's anything, and I have known it in the local hospital here, where they'll give you something to put in the window to say, I mean, having chemotherapy treatment. So, I mean, you can kind of avoid those kind of hospital kind of parking charges, which can be quite extortionate, worth looking into with the relevant kind of unit and specialist nurse. Prescription charges, I wanted to kind of go into briefly. It's £9.35 an item at the moment in England. Wales, Scotland, Northern Ireland, they're free. But it does, if you need to kind of get a few items kind of every week, every month, it does kind of mount up. If you have a cancer diagnosis, and I don't know if many kind of people know this, but you can get a medical exemption certificate. It's a credit card size kind of, which you keep in your wallet or your purse, basically. If you have a cancer diagnosis, so this includes the effects of cancer or the effects of current or previous cancer treatment, you can in England get an exemption certificate, and it would be through your GP. Just kind of go and ask them. You'd like, if you want to make a note of the form, that's got an FP92A, but I can make all this available if you do run out of time. But as I say, yeah, it's something the GP can do, and then the certificate is valid for a month before the date, so you can claim back, and the certificate lasts for 5 years. So it is something that you can, or you may be eligible for, because you have a cancer diagnosis. So it's something worth looking into if you live in England, certainly. NHS low income scheme. So this is if you have a low income but are not on a means tested benefit. So the way they look at this is they look at your outgoings, they look at your income. If they're there or thereabouts the same, then basically you could get a low income kind of certificate, which will help with prescription charges, dental charges, sight tests, glasses, contact lenses, and again, kind of traveling back and forth to receive kind of NHS treatment. If you go into a different hospital, maybe kind of got a lot of kind of travel, where you maybe kind of have to stay in hotels and there's no kind of assistance that way, it may then well be worth as well kind of looking at things that kind of Turn to Us, who can support with kind of grants. I've done one myself for somebody who was having help in the Royal Free Hospital in London, and they had a grant for £2,000 to help them kind of with the travel costs back and forth, for hotel costs as well. And things like kind of disabled persons rail cards as well. If you're on things like personal independence payment, that can help if you're having to kind of go to these places kind of via train, or you're unable to drive. that kind of maybe an option as well and worth looking into. If you've already paid for treatment, you can apply for a refund once you kind of look into this low income scheme. So again, kind of you're looking at the 3-month type of thing, whereby if you've kind of paid for treatment in 3 months and you've got evidence of that, you can claim back those kind of fares as well. Energy bills, really kind of quickly, as in probably about £107 a year, according to Macmillan, extra kind of heating costs as a result of kind of chemotherapy treatment. That's the last thing you really want to be kind of worrying about. I mean, when you've got kind of a cancer diagnosis is, oh my God, I'm gonna have to turn up the heating. I can't really kind of afford to pay the bills, you know. But talk to your energy provider. Make sure you tell them about your situation. If you're on any benefits, they may be able to kind of help you that way. They can put you on things like a priority service register, which will kind of bump you up the kind of list, if you like, if you need any kind of extra help with any kind of bills at all. And they'll also look for things like kind of cheaper tariffs, may get you onto some sort of kind of reduced rate for a while. Empower, they've got a partnership with Macmillan, so if you let them know, obviously, that you're struggling to pay the bills, you have a cancer diagnosis, they may be able to kind of cap things, help you up, write off debt, for example, that you may have built up. British Gas, Trick Sargent, they kind of work with youngsters who have a cancer diagnosis. British Gas kind of works specifically with them. And again, if you look at British Gas, EDF, E.ON, they've all got charitable trusts, and they can offer grants to people who may have built up a little bit of debt, who have got kind of extra kind of costs as a result of a cancer diagnosis. British Gas are the only ones who offer help, even if you're not with them as a supplier. So maybe worth looking at your actual kind of energy supplier if you've got these extra costs, just to see how they can help you. There's the Warm Home Discount Scheme. I wanted to put this in quickly because it starts on the 18th of October of this year, and it's basically 140 quid off your electric bill for this winter under the Warm Home Discount Scheme. You don't get any money at all, but it is kind of, it comes off your bill, so you don't kind of see anything. So it comes off your bill between October and March. Again, you could be able to get a discount on your gas bill instead, if you get kind of, if you're using the same one for electric and gas. Eligibility, it's the guaranteed element of pension credit, basically. So you're in the core group there, so you should kind of get a letter in a way if you're in that kind of pension credit group. They'll tell you exactly kind of how it works. And again, if you're on a low income, contact your energy supplier, because if you're on a means tested benefit and a low income, you may very well qualify for the Warm Home Discount Scheme, even though you're not claiming a pension. Things like kind of mortgages, as I say, with a bank lender, don't be kind of scared in a way to kind of talk to them. If you do find that you're in financial difficulty, speak to them, explain the situation, and they may, as I say, give you repayment holidays. I mean, if you had COVID, then they were giving 6-month payment holidays out left, right, and centre. Cancer seems to have taken a little bit of a backward step there, but they should be able to kind of help you with a cancer diagnosis if you are kind of struggling, and give you some repayment holiday. They could, as I say, cut the cost of overdrafts again, kind of credit card debt. They could freeze things, maybe kind of reduce fees as well for a period of time. But Lloyds Bank Nationwide, they've both teamed up with Macmillan. So if you happen to be with one of those banks, then there is kind of a dedicated kind of customer helpline for people who have cancer, and they may be able to kind of help you just through them. Just talk to your bank, whoever you're with, they may be able to kind of help you out. There's a question here about, obviously, kind of help with mortgages. Unfortunately, there's not a huge amount of help with the mortgage. They kind of, you go onto the property ladder, you saved all your life, and then all of a sudden you've got a diagnosis whereby you can't kind of work for a period of time. But again, it is a case of kind of going to your lender, seeing, as I say, if they can maybe switch you into interest only for a period of time. But there's not a lot of help there now for support with mortgage interest. The government have bought in, or they've got a scheme now, but you must be on a means tested benefit for 39 weeks before you can kind of claim. So things like kind of universal credit, anything kind of income related, and they can cover the interest on a mortgage. So your mortgage could be up to £200,000. So if you were maybe able to temporarily switch over onto an interest only for a period, but then you'd have to be on a means tested benefit for 39 weeks before you can apply. It is a loan as well. It didn't used to be a loan, but it is a loan now, which does attract interest. So if your house were to be kind of sold a little bit later on, this would kind of be there as kind of a charge in a way on your property, which would kind of need to be settled after any mortgage or any other kind of secured loans were kind of paid off. But it's a thought there, if you do have a mortgage and you are struggling, there is that kind of help with the mortgage interest. Student loan, there's a possibility as well. If you do have a student loan, you could get it written off. If you become disabled or the cancer's class kind of as a disability, you can get your student loan kind of written off completely. You must be able to show that you're unfit to work long term. And again, to be eligible, kind of, you must be able to provide evidence. So disability related benefit, PIP, disability living allowance, that sort of thing. You've got to have an up-to-date kind of benefit award letter and something from your GP or your consultant saying that you are permanently or unfit to work for quite a long time. That may help you kind of with the student loan and maybe kind of get it written off. Coming to the end now, and I know we're kind of a bit pushed for time, but as I say, as far as kind of benefit as well as go, I mean, just what we can do really is kind of help you understand what benefits that you may be entitled to. Any kind of grants, we could have a look at grants just to make sure kind of you may get something kind of that way if you're on a low income. Forms are a nightmare. They can be an absolute nightmare to fill in, and we can kind of do these kind of complex forms kind of on your behalf and with your support. All we really need from you is just to sit down and kind of go through the questions and have some information. And again, kind of liaising with relevant authorities just to make the whole process a little bit kind of easier and as stress-free as possible. I came into the job really to kind of make this as easy for people as possible, to simplify the benefit system. So as I say, I hope I've managed to do that today, but as I say, if we can kind of make it as simple and stress-free for you as possible, then, I mean, hopefully we're doing the right thing. I just wanted to kind of finish on a case study in relation to one of my centre visitors. Whose name was Rachel. She had a ovarian cancer diagnosis. She'd gone through radiotherapy, surgery. She was on income-related ESA, but she was in the work-related activity group. So basically, she was on £104.40 a week. That was it. Her housing benefit was paid. Her council tax was paid, so she didn't have any problems there. But her income was £104.40 a week, and she was actually kind of having to access a food bank every week because she couldn't afford to put food on the table, basically. Following the referral, we just kind of did a couple of kind of calculations. Managed to get a grant for the heating, cost us for £350. They turned to us grant £1,500. We applied for PIP, which went to appeal, but it was very recently kind of re-awarded, so £7,000 as a lump sum, £152.15 because she had the top rates for PIP for the next 4 years. And because of that kind of building block element of the means tested benefit, she went from £104.40 in the work-related activity group to £198.60 a week because she was placed into the support group. So her new kind of benefits were £350 a week. So as far as a benefit advisor goes, I mean, we do have that kind of specialist knowledge. So if we ever wanted to kind of tap into it, whether it be with a Maggie Centre or with Citizens Advice Bureau or Macmillan, you know, just that kind of conversation for 15, 20 minutes could result in you kind of significantly kind of increasing your income and hopefully, as I say, kind of alleviating those kind of worries whilst you're going through treatment. That is it. I am done.
Great, thank you so much, Mike.
I hope it hasn't been too much because it can be a bit of a minefield, the benefit side of things. But any kind of doubts, any queries, or just as I say, I'm more than happy to answer anything kind of moving forward. Great.
So we're officially at the end now. So again, thank you so much, Mike, and for all of you for joining us. We hope you enjoyed it and found it useful. Just to reiterate, as Mike mentioned earlier, he will be happy to answer any questions that you have after the session as well. So if you haven't submitted it before, you can still email us at info@targetovariancancer.org.uk and we will pass them on to Mike. As another follow-up, we will also be sending you more information about ovarian cancer and your finances, as well as future digital events that we will be hosting at Target, and a feedback form later today. We would love to hear what you thought of the event, as this helps us to improve our digital events and ensure we are offering the support everyone affected by ovarian cancer needs. Just a couple notes on other support services we provide. So if you would like more opportunities to speak to others affected by ovarian cancer and to experience more of our digital events together, we would recommend joining the Ovarian Cancer Community. So this is an open and understanding Facebook community for everyone affected by ovarian cancer anywhere in the UK. And we also do have a support line. So if you have any further questions or concerns, or just want to have a chat, our support line is available for you if you would like to talk to one of our nurses. So please call us on 020 7923 5475. That number is on our website as well. So again, not much more to say, but thank you again to Mike, who has delivered such a great session, and to all of you for joining us and making it such a wonderful event. We look forward to seeing you all soon, and we hope that you enjoy the rest of your day. So thanks everyone. Bye.